Good afternoon. This is Jim Whitehead for the second time. I apologize. You know, in all my YouTube career, it's been 75 years. Well, no, not quite 75 years. But what they always say, people, they kind of suggest how to be successful and not to be successful. Don't delete anything. Well, I found with what I just did about 30 or more minutes ago that the image, in the sense of what I'm seeing myself, it's nice looking at yourself all this time, but it was oversaturated, and the audio was okay, but not where you'd say, and I couldn't just accept leaving this up. So how this kind of works, I went up to my site on YouTube and just looked how many views I had, because you don't like to, if somebody's already said, hey, I like this, and then it's gone, that's maybe not the best thing in the world either. But here we are again, and we're going to have, my audio sounds good, my video looks normal. So what we're going to talk about today is politics in the middle. Now, yes, I'm an animal channel, and you might say, Jim, that's not animals. I say, well, kind of it is animals, if you want to say the whole thing. A lot of people doing some weird, and I shouldn't even say animal things because that's not fair. Animals are wonderful. It's just we've got some very bad people. I just don't know any other way to say it. And you don't need to be bad. We're so blessed in the United States. And now we're going downhill. And we really are. It's sad. And, so we do these political things where it's not where I'm going to solve all the problems in the world. But hopefully it kind of points out some issues, and in this particular politics in the middle, it's supposed to be humorous. If you can laugh, it's better to laugh than cry. So anyway, let's get going. Okay, as you probably know, Trump announces a new cutting-edge uniform for the Space Force. I think he thinks he was on the Star Trek Enterprise, and he deserves to be the leader of today's Space Force. I hate to tell him the truth. The uniform, and again, you kind of, with AI, you can't always get it exactly looking what the description is, but the uniform is a bright red jumpsuit. And we tried to get Trump into it, and he didn't fit. So we had to kind of make some changes here. So anyway, the jumpsuit with a giant, here we go, you ready for it? Make Space Great Again logo on the back. It includes a helmet with a built-in selfie stick and a visor that projects holographic tweets. Just exactly what the president wants to do. If you said to him, what's the Space Force? He'd say, well, I don't know. Elon Musk is the space guy. And I'm going to just say, some things that are, I guess you might say, asides, but I really respected and was impressed with Elon Musk before he got into politics. Oh, well, actually, before that, well, technically, when he bought Twitter. This is like, I do these presentations, but later on, I'm going to fly my plane to the exonosphere. I mean, you say, Jim, no, I don't think you're good for that. Well, that's exactly what happened with Elon Musk. With SpaceX, Starlink, the Boring Company. Where he does boring things. He bores tunnels and what have you. And Tesla. He decided it was going to be great to get involved with politics. Now, I won't even get into some of the points of why they feel Musk got involved with politics. But if anybody, even my dog, Jamie, who's wonderful, she's like, he was a great guy. He was doing good things for this country. And then he gets involved in politics. And he put all this money before the election. And, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I'm hearing too often that he, with all his money, because he put into this election about $150 million, that he did it for a reason. And like with anything, we all do things for a reason, usually, unless you're really wacko. So his thought was, I get involved in politics, I kiss butt, I put a lot of money, I go to, let's say, Wisconsin, and I say to people, vote for whoever, I can't think of the names, but I'm going to give you $1 million to two people. Well, if in any type of world like we have, that's called election interference or election corruption. So that's not good. So anyway, here we are. Trump is now the Space Force. He can't do tariffs. He can't negotiate with people, but he's a spaceman. Anyway, okay, moving on. The border wall upgrade. Now, what I'm going to read is not necessarily what you're going to see in the picture, but you'll get the idea that in his first administration, he thought that I want to be able to keep all these bad Mexicans, and even more where he would say every country is sending all their bad people from mental institutions and jails, and they send them to our border, southern border, and we let them in and say, hey, how much money do you want? You want a job? There are always problems, but the problems that Trump brings up are to the nth degree, where if, let's say, a problem is on a scale of 1 to 10, and you go, the problem's a 2, every problem Trump talks about is 100. So, and here's the other sad point that some of you know and don't know, or don't know. He lies. The whole Republican Party lies. And I don't like to generalize like that. I have been pretty honest my whole life, and that's how I look the way we should be. And the good news is you don't have to be dishonest to be successful. I had my own businesses, and still do, actually. And I didn't lie to people. I didn't cheat people. I would always say to them, I did generators for many years, 20 years. I said, look, I will not tell you, this is the customer when I'm starting their job, because, generator job in South Florida, because of all the permitting and inspections and getting the equipment, takes a couple months. So I would say to the customer, look, you're going to see me a lot, but it will not be where I tell you anything that I know is wrong. So I'm not going to lie to you. And I also said, as part of the honesty, I will not do something that I hope an inspector is going to miss. And that means if you put something upside down and you don't fix it, and you're hoping, ooh, hopefully the inspector's not going to notice it, you're foolish. So you turn it right side up, or on occasion, because you work at an honesty point with the inspectors, and I know I'm going a little off in tangents, but bottom line, if they said to me that wire should be blue instead of green, using a stupid example, I'd say, can I do that right now? Can I change it from blue to green or whatever? And if they trust you and you've built trust, they will go, yes. And I would, because it's not necessarily where you're going to say the inspector's going to come back later that day or the next day, but you never know. But if you've told them you're going to do something, do it. That's it. No, it's simple as that. So anyway, Trump decides the existing border wall isn't intimidating enough. He orders it to be painted with giant, cartoonish eyes that follow people as they walk by. By the way, again, this is an attempt, and I do this politics in the middle. And by the way, I typically do four examples of weird things that are going on, but I have a special credit, a fifth one. So if you can stay to the end, it helps me, and hopefully you'll get a kick out of the fifth one when I get to it. Anyway, so he adds a moat filled with alligators wearing tiny MAGA hats. By the way, speaking of MAGA hats, the other thing that's happening is he's already selling. God bless him. He'll sell anything that's not nailed down. His caps that say Trump 2028. So he has in his mind, even though it's not constitutionally allowed, and the only that I'm aware of, FDR in World War II, he actually started a fourth term because he was so integrated into helping the world, and especially Great Britain and England, against Hitler. So people said, hey, let's keep this guy here. And he was involved with, of course, the development of the H-bomb, which we can all debate all day as to whether that was great or not great. But, he was trying to, in the long run, save a lot of people. So, we can't legislate or argue and say, shouldn't have been done. You have to look at history and learn from it, which that's the fun thing with Trump. He generally doesn't learn from history other than these wonderful tariffs. President McKinley in 98, don't quote me, and you won't be tested on this, but he thought tariffs were a great idea. And you still have people say to you, well, the tariffs, they're the person shipping the equipment is paying them. No. And because you say it's a tax, and it is. Because what happens is, if let's say a tariff that's 10%, when it comes in, when whatever product people in the United States, let's say Target and whoever gets that product coming from, in a lot of cases, China, they have to pay the 10% tariff. So what do? In most cases, they raise the price to cover that 10%. And unfortunately, the tariffs are a lot higher than 10%. We all could probably live with that. But when he has 145% tariff on China, that means anybody buying anything from China is going to need to pay for, 145% on top of, what it typically would be. So what happens? No one can buy it. No one will buy it. Because if Joe Schmo's store says, well, I had to pay an extra $150 for something, I usually sell it for $100, I'm now going to sell it for $250. Guess what? It's not going to move. So it's a total going down the hill aspect of what tariffs can do. And, fine tuning, if you come in as president, you say, we got to make some adjustments. We need to try to balance a little bit of issues with China. Do it. But don't act like I'm going to do this and everybody's going to go, oh, no, okay, let me get a deal with you. And, no. They all just go jump in the lake. The other aspect of this is when people are, trade, the cheapest trade for us in the sense of logistics is Canada, because we have, as Trump says, that beautiful artificial border. Well, it's not an artificial border. Somebody made that border as to saying, this is where the United States stops, and this is where Canada stops or starts. It's not where, somebody just got a ruler. Well, maybe they did. Yes, some boundaries are based on, if it's, let's say, Oklahoma, I'm using an example, if they have a river that goes along, let's say, the west side of the state, their boundary line might follow that river, because it's pretty simple. If you say, unless the river changes course, but bottom line, that's our west side boundary. Anyway, and the other good one to have it where we can work well with and keep our costs down is Mexico. So what do? He's made, especially on Canada, and I love Canada. I used to vacation there when I was younger. It doesn't make any sense. And, some of the Walmarts and let's say Target, what have you, they're saying out loud that our shelves are going to be empty because we're not getting anything as what we normally get, and the price that people are going to be able to afford it. Every time my wife goes to, her name is 24, by the way. Every time 24 goes to the store, she comes home and says, yeah, this one went up $5. She holds up something and says, guess what I paid for this? I have to try to guess. And, I have to give her a high number, and usually it's low. But anyway, and I'm not laughing, but it's like, this is ridiculous. And even President McKinley recognized, he didn't do it very long because he found that it didn't work. So why would you, when you're 100 plus years later, 130 years later, are going to sit there and go, it worked back then, so it's going to work now? No. Anyway, back to the wall. He's going to just work on the wall to have it where people go, oh, that wall is, I'm scared of that wall. Well, people aren't stupid. They either go under the wall, fly over the wall. The wall isn't everywhere. It's been damaged here and there. So guess what? It isn't going to work. But that's what we have to put up with. Okay, the next thing is the trade deal negotiation. Kind of referred to it a little bit. Trump tries to negotiate a trade deal with a foreign leader by challenging them to a game. This is probably a good idea. He challenges them to a game because he's saying, oh, yeah, they're all lining up to cut deals with us. Oh, I've spoken to China a lot of times. Well, he's lying. If you want to believe lies, that's okay. You can. But anyway, so what they have decided to do, they're going to play the game, and most of you will know this, called rock, paper, and scissors. You know, you'd go, shh. I never really played it very much, but that's how you'd say, okay, who's going to go up first to the top of the building? You'd say, all right, well, let's do rock, paper, scissors. Whoop, you lost, you go up. So anyway, that's how now they're deciding on what the tariffs are going to be for each of these individual countries. He insists that the scissors beat paper, rock, and lizard. He declares himself the ultimate trade negotiator when he wins. And, you know, the funny part, Trump never loses in his mind. Whenever he plays golf, he cheats, so he wins. But I guess that's okay with him. He feels like I won because I said I did. Okay. Now, here is, and this one's pretty cool. And it's one of those, why didn't I think of this? I'd be rich. But the climate change solution, Trump decides to solve the climate change by building a giant, I know you're saying this is brilliant, air conditioner on the North Pole. Now, it might be next to the North Pole, but the bottom line, it's in the Arctic. And so, because it's at the top of the world, he claims it will cool the entire planet and make the ice caps great again. There we go. Everything has to be great again. The air conditioner runs on coal and emits a plume of black smoke visible from space. You know, God bless him. I know he has promised. A lot of the coal was mined in West Virginia, that area of our country, and it really supported what we needed for fuel for many, many, many years, but very, very caustic, very, very polluting, to the extent that this AC that he installed on the North Pole, they can see the plume on, the space station, the ISS. And they're like, what the hell? Where's that coming from? Oh, it's coming from Trump's big air conditioner in the Arctic that's cooling the whole planet. Yeah, I'm running it on coal instead of solar or whatever. Anyway, good idea. Wish I had thought of it. Now, let's move into the extra credit. This is and as I said, you get this extra credit. You get an extra 5 points. The presidential library design. This is what, even though he doesn't think he's going to ever not be president, and he thinks he's going to run in 2028, he's like, well, no, I'm going to build. I guess I get a library for every time I'm in office. So if he thinks he's going to be in office 3 times, he'll have three areas that would be his library and so on and so forth. Okay, the new design for his presidential library is a giant gold-plated pyramid with a casino. It's pretty. Is it just gold paint or is it real gold? Trump has this thing where he likes gold. And if you see what he's done to the White House, pretty tacky in the sense of gold this, gold that. So anyway, a golf course and a replica of the White House lawn. The library's slogan is the biggest and best presidential library in the history of the world. There you go again. Everything he does is the best of the best is the best. Anyway, we do these politics in the middle. Yes, I'm Phoenix Animal also, but we do this because it makes us feel a little bit better that, and again, this isn't helping solve our problems, but it has it where I feel a little bit that I'm trying to help a little bit, pointing out some of the strange things that are going on. And what's happened to YouTube, it's not YouTube's fault, but if you go on YouTube, I'd say 85% of what's on YouTube is all political stuff. Somebody just said this. It goes on and on and on. And admittedly, you can get real tired of this after a while. And, it all comes from where, like I do, my own perspective. In this case today, I'm trying to make it funny. You might be saying, well, we don't laugh very much. But anyway, I want to thank you. And if you stayed for this last, the fifth slide, hopefully you know how much I really appreciate you helping me. Because every time anybody watches any of my content and leave a like or subscribe, it helps big time. And it's like with anything. Some days it's good, some days it's not. But bottom line, the biggest thing that I have learned my whole life and all the businesses I've done, I had a coffee business also, wrote a coffee book, you don't give up. So if anybody gets anything from this presentation, it's just whatever you're trying to do, don't give up. And I've always said, unless you're dead or dying, you can make good things happen. Not all the time, not as quickly as you'd like, but it will happen. So, thank you, and I want you to have a good day. And hang in there. My wife is Cuban. She's from Cuba. And every day she's like, well, we're getting more like Cuba every day. And I'm like, we're not there yet. And I don't want to get so down about it. But we need to make some changes, and hopefully there's enough following and emphasis on doing the right thing. So again, take care. Thank you.